Senator Hickenlooper, thank you so much for joining us. According to Axios, sir, you had an integral role in getting Senators Schumer and Manchin back to the negotiating table on reconciliation, which is great for us and really great for the climate. Tell me what you were saying to them to get them back to the table.
Well, I think, let's be clear that Chuck Schumer and Joe Manchin are the ones that created this and negotiated it. I just tried to be the positive, optimistic force that anytime there was disruptions, I try to push through them and make sure that everybody else was kind of coming along. For a while there, Democrats all over the country were giving up, and it was just too important for us to give up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's why a lot of people are appreciative to your efforts, and certainly to Senator Schumer and Manchin as well, for getting this deal done. Do you think Senator Sinema will get on board?
Oh, I think so. I hope so. I haven't talked to her, but she is a real patriot in terms of climate rescue. She understands the sense of urgency that we all need to have, that the clock is running on how we are heating up the planet. And I think I know she has issues with, she's a very detail-oriented person and very smart, but I think they'll work out it. She and Senator Schumer are going to work through to get to a solution, I hope.
Do you, based on what you've been able to see either in these negotiations and broadly speaking, do you feel that you can get any of your Republican colleagues or your Republican counterparts, rather, on board as well?
I don't know if we will. Probably not, because they've locked down. That's the word. They're going to oppose this at every single level. But when you talk privately to a lot of Republicans, they believe that climate change is real. And they understand that we've got to take some bold action. When we do these kinds of initiatives, start building solar energy at scale, the prices drop dramatically, which really helps the entire world. You look at solar now over the last 10 years, it's dropped almost 90%. Look at wind, it's dropped 80%. These are huge benefits of these kinds of government incentives.
Let's, if we can, talk, sir, about the specifics of the reconciliation deal. There are big investments, as we were just saying, on climate change, on prescription drug pricing. Walk me through some of the specific contours of the reconciliation bill that you think are important to highlight.
Well, I think, again, $369 billion to address climate rescue is huge. There's $300 billion to reduce the deficit. People are talking about the inflation. One way to address inflation is to go at the deficit. You're going to have $100 billion towards renewable resource energy, $10 billion to help working families get rooftop solar or heat pumps in their houses, help them afford electric vehicles. This is really the first comprehensive step to going at climate change head on. And yet we have to remember, this is just the beginning. This is not the end of anything. We're still not dealing with transmission lines at the scale we're going to need to. We've done so much, but there's still so much that needs to be done.
Sadly, one of the reactions from your counterparts, the Senate Republicans, was to delay to this deal was to stall and delay legislation to actually help veterans exposed to burn pits. Your reaction to that? I think most Americans understand that politics can be a difficult game, but this is a particularly gruesome low by the Republicans to not help veterans exposed to burn pits just because Democrats struck a deal on reconciliation.
Well, to say that I'm disappointed is an understatement, and I don't understand how they connect. In politics, sometimes things don't connect, but I'm hopeful that we'll get another vote this coming week, and we can make sure that veterans get the support they need. I mean, these people are fighting to protect us, to protect our freedoms, and when they come down with these horrible diseases, various cancers, all kinds of respiratory issues that are clearly the result of having lived close to these burn pits, toxins of all, medical waste supplies, old cars, all burning in these pits. Some of them half the size of half a football field. We need to support them. How can we question that?
Yeah, and there's also growing concerns, sir, and I'm sure you've seen this. Senator Susan Collins saying that some Senate Republicans might now oppose codifying same-sex marriage because of this reconciliation deal. Have you heard anything to that effect? I mean, is she serious about this? And again, what would this mean for that effort?
Well, I don't really understand. Chuck Schumer never said that by getting USICA done, the CHIPS Act, that we weren't going to do a reconciliation. And as Joe Manchin said consistently all the way along, he hadn't stopped negotiating. He said, "I'm done," to a group of reporters on a Thursday or a Friday, but that just meant he was done talking to them now. He just had enough. But I saw him the next Monday, and he said, no, I'm still negotiating and working on this stuff and willing to talk to Chuck, and let's take this thing forward. So if Joe Manchin and Chuck Schumer were always still working on this, and Joe Manchin was openly, he was in several media, was quoted as saying he was still working on it. The Republicans are getting so angry that somehow the CHIPS Act passed and then the reconciliation went forward. I don't think that was a political device that Chuck Schumer put together. I think that was just how things broke. Maybe they waited a couple hours or not. I don't know. But I don't see what it has to do with same-sex marriage. I don't see what it has to do with medical benefits for our veterans.
How do Democrats take on this achievement, if it does get passed and ultimately signed into law, and build on the momentum going into the midterms? Because the truth is Democrats are getting things done, but it doesn't necessarily seem they're good at selling that they're getting things done to the American voters. And so there's this perception that nothing is getting done in Washington. How do you change that dynamic ahead of the midterms?
Well, part of it is talking about what we've gotten done. That's why, Joe Manchin came up with the name of this bill is the Inflation Reduction Act. It is going to, I'm not sure how much it'll reduce inflation, but it'll certainly slow it down. Giving relief to people when they're buying prescription drugs is going to be a big deal. $300 billion to reduce the deficit. That's a big deal. Looking at ways to help working people afford a electric vehicle, $4,000 for used vehicles. Electric vehicles are for sale used out there for $12,000, $14,000. This will help people afford that. These are all clear ways that this is going to help people in their monthly household budgets. And we should talk about it. We Democrats are too busy throwing stones at each other sometimes than to recognize how much we as a group have done for this country.
Yeah, absolutely. And can't let the Republicans as well define the narrative for what the Democrats are doing on the Hill as well. They seem to be doing that quite consistently.
I think that the Republicans have become the party of chaos, and Democrats are really the party of stability. That's a big switch from several decades ago.
Senator John Hickenlooper, sir, thank you so much for joining us. I greatly appreciate your time.
No, my pleasure. Thank you.